So in the schoolyard, there was a seesaw, and there were swings. And on a fall day when the leaves were all over the schoolyard, I was playing, and I was lying down, flat on my back, with my head to the ground, and these two boys behind me had their arms on each other's shoulders, and they were moving backwards, making believe they were trained, and the shoe of one of the boys hit me in the head, and you can feel it now. It's still there. Not as big as it has been over the years. Over the years, it's got smaller and smaller, but it was still there. And that happened to me when I was 8 or 9 years old. We had a dog, and I thought it was the most interesting thing that dog, when he would walk slanted. Now, why do dogs walk slanted? The dog is going this way, but yet he's at a 35-degree angle. Then another thing about that dog was that his tail end had rings of fur, and this fur had to grow in such a complex pattern, these rings of fur. I thought that was so interesting. And we had a couch in the kitchen. The kitchen was huge. We ate in the kitchen. We got the meals in the kitchen. We did the dishes in the kitchen. We made the Monopoly game in the kitchen. And but this had a couch. You know, that was the nicest couch to lie down on a winter afternoon. It was so nice. And
mumps and measles?
Yes, thank you. We had mumps. I had the mumps. I remember lying on that couch with the mumps. And I remember having measles and scratching. And did we have a vaccination? I do not remember any vaccination there. Later I do. I'll tell you about that. And Ralph Jr. was the clerk in that little tiny First National store. You know, it's no bigger than a drugstore today. No, I shouldn't have used a drugstore. That's too big. But, you know, it could have been more than 15 feet wide, and it could have been more than 30 feet deep. And they didn't have cash registers, and they didn't add things up with a receipt that came out automatically. My brother Ralph, when the person would say she wanted that box of cookies, he would put the price of the cookies on a paper bag, the bag that she was going to carry home. And if they wanted a loaf of bread, he'd put the price of that on there. And then he'd end up with a column on the paper bag of about 15 figures, and then he'd add them all up. He was never wrong. Nobody ever caught him adding up the figures on the paper bag wrong. Isn't that amazing? And then we used to go out to Hamden Corners to see Aunt Bertha, and Charlie Barrows had a store there, a general store, a general country store that served that area, Hamden Corners, just south of Bangor. And there was a bicycle there that had the front wheel of the bicycle was this big, maybe bigger than that. And then the person sat way, way up here tall on the seat and had these pedals. And then in the back, there was a little tiny wheel. How did anybody ride such a contraption? And at one time, the Charlie Barrows store was a post office. And whenever they closed that post office and stopped using it, nobody ever picked it up. And when you went over to that old post office, you saw all kinds of receipts and old envelopes, and it was very, very interesting. And Barrows was a governor of the state of Maine at one time, that family. and Aunt Ivor was quite rich, and Aunt Bertha wasn't. That was my mother's sister. And my mother never had a babysitter. She never left me with a babysitter. All those years, she took me wherever she went. What a terrible burden I was to her. She took me everywhere. She never left me alone with anybody. Now listen. There was a house where we lived, 173 Ohio Street. It was a two-family house, and it was so nice inside. It was beautiful inside. There's that house. There's our backyard. It's on a slope. Here's the First National store right next. Listen, if you went down our driveway, you would come to a path. And this was a path no wider than this. And there was wood on it, and there was a railing. And guess what? Down into those woods, surrounded by trees, was a house. A huge house. 3-bedroom house. How did they ever build a house deep into the woods that way with no driveway and no access but this little path, this little wooden walk? Well, they were two of the people in my mom and dad's bridge club, and Ralph and Dora LeBrie and Roy and Eva Hudson. Roy Hudson was our school janitor. Ralph LeBrie was a carpenter. And Glendora wanted a desk, and of course we never had any money to buy anything like that. And Glendora thought it would be so nice and prestigious if she had a desk. And Ralph LeBrie found out about it. And Glendora used to go over and see Ralph and Dora and sit in their living room and talk to them maybe once a week. And they lived within a block or so of us, and you could see them through the backyards. And one day, Ralph, the carpenter, got up and went into his garage, and he started pounding, and he started sawing, and he started cutting, and he started measuring. Just out of his own mind, with no plans at all, he made Glendora a desk in that one day. A 3-door, one knee hole, 3-door desk, a 3-drawer desk. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that?
Your dad got a job as a barber at the Bangor house?
Oh, yes. I had to tell you, why did we leave Lincoln? Well, Daddy got a job as a barber in the Bangor house. Thank you, dear. And the Bangor house was the most fashionable hotel in the city, of course. It was the hotel. Very, very swank for Bangor. And so Daddy went down to Bangor to live, and then we came down in the summer after I finished 4th grade. And I want to tell you about the 4th grade. The teacher was Ella Burr. And just last year, now I'm talking about the year 1938, and then I'm switching you up to the year 2026. I'm Lisa McGee's sister, who lived all of her life in Boston. When she and her husband retired, they wanted to live in the state of Maine, and they went all the way up to Lincoln, 48 miles northeast of Bangor. Isn't that something? And guess what they told me? That their new elementary school in Lincoln, Maine was named the Ella Burr, after my 4th grade teacher. Doesn't that give you a thrill? And so we would go out to Hamden Corner, and there were gardens out there, and the people raised peas and vegetables, and then they canned these peas. Baxter, they canned them, and they piled the pea pods in a great, great big pile. about 20 feet long and about 10 feet wide, and those peas rotted, those pea pods rotted, and it was the most malodorous section, and I could hardly wait until we had driven by that pea factory. I could hardly wait for the olfactory offense. No, what else do we tell you?
Snap green beans?
Yes, Mother would buy the green beans from the store, fresh green beans that the farmers had brought in, and she would make us take off the tails and take off the heads, and then break the green beans up into pieces, 3 or 4 pieces. And she made Gordon and I do that for hours. And Gordon and I disliked it so, and we fooled around, and we were inattentive, and we were just not good children at all. And Gordon, by the way, was working for he wanted the title for the soapbox derby. Does anybody out there remember the soapbox derby? And so he was building his soapbox. It was made out of a crate, and he had a gear in it. And of course, it was operated only by gravity down the hill. And if you got down the hill faster than anybody else, you won. But it was a national thing. I remember listening to Eddie Cantor in the afternoon on the radio. Gordon had a guitar, and he taught himself to play it. Gordon was fascinated by books about Collie Dog of Sunnybrook Farm. What was the Collie Dog's name?
4:00 p.m., 78.3 degrees Fahrenheit.
Thank you, little temperature clock. What was his name? Tulane? Tulane, that was the name of the author. And he had several books on Collie Dogs of Sunnybrook Farm. And to this day, Gordon's son is enamored with his dog, Kelly Dog, a Collie Dog. And when Gordon's son Scott, when Scott's wife was sick and had to go to the hospital, and Scott went to the hospital to visit his wife, he took the Collie Dog. And everybody in the hospital went gaga over that beautiful Collie Dog. It just almost healed everybody in the hospital. No. Any other notes, honey?
Roller skates?
What, dear?
Roller skates?
Oh, yes. One Christmas, as poor as we were, somebody bought me a pair of roller skates. And they were roller skates, with the metal wheels and the straps that really didn't fit your foot well. And I was so enamored with those roller skates, and I went down the sidewalk, down Court Street, to the rich house of the Garlands. They had made their money as everybody did in Bangor, in the woods or in bad things. And I remember going down the sidewalk in those roller skates and not doing a very good job of it. Anything else, dear?
Benny's?
Oh, Benny's store. Benny's was a variety store, and it was only 6 houses from us. And you had penny candy. For a penny, you could buy a piece of vanilla fudge or chocolate fudge. For a penny, you could buy 2 Jawbreakers. For a penny, you could buy 2 Twizzlers, one red one and one black one. For a penny.
The Bangor Daily News?
Oh, yes, a very prominent newspaper was the Bangor Daily News. It was quite prestigious, very well thought of. All over the state, and I guess pretty nationally, it was favored as a very good newspaper. That was the morning paper. And then there was the Bangor Commercial, and they were struggling. They were the evening paper. And Gordon was a delivery boy for each one. And you delivered newspapers to the door, and at the end of the week, Saturday, you would go to the person's house and you would collect the $1 for the newspaper for the whole week. It,
FBI caught some bandits?
oh, this was a terrible thing. Some national bandits were wanted all over the country, and they fled to Maine because they thought that nobody would know them or recognize them in Maine, and they had a certain bullet that they wanted, and they got the store in Maine to order it for them, and they would pick it up on such and such a day. That day, the bandits went into the store, they got the bullets, they came back, and the FBI had cleared out all of the people from that part of the store, and from the roofs of the building, and from anywhere there was any height. They shot those bandits. They shot them dead. Right there in that street. Very near where the Bangor commercial was.
Blind man?
Yes, but let me tell you about that. That was a rank transgression of due process of law. They might have shot the wrong people. They didn't have a trial. They didn't have their day in court. It was rankly against the Sixth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, and the Fourth Amendment. I think that was a terrible thing. And then some people came to town and they put on a little show. And one of the things is they had a glassed-in case, and they had people all dressed up and doing things in a workshop. And these people, their hands would move and their feet would move. Why, that was a masterpiece. And then traveling with the show was a blind man who would stand out on the street with an accordion and sing songs, and he had a cup, and he had a monkey on his shoulder. Those things really were something for a little girl of 10 years old to see.
Miniature woodworking shop?
Yeah, that was it, the little miniature woodworking shop. Yes. Great. Anything else, hon?
A white grocery wrap?
What was it, dear?
A white grocery wrap?
Gee, I don't know what that was. A white grocery wrap.
Yeah.
Try me on something else.
Okay. Carving soap.
Yes. Yes. That was an awful thing because soap costs a lot of money, and you get a bar of ivory soap, and then you'd carve it and you'd carve a ship, and it was embossed like it was cut out of the soap. And you made so many mistakes, then you have to start a new bar of soap. Oh, I know what the white wrap is, the grocery. Some men opened a grocery store across the street, and they had a big roll of wrapping paper for grocery items, grocery packages. And it was about this long, and the paper was were kind of stiff paper. And I thought it was make wonderful posters, and I asked them if I could have some. And I took it home, and I started to make a poster, and I ruined it. So I went back and asked them for more paper. Well, they gave it to me, and then I ruined that one. And I went back and asked them some more, and they had really had enough by then. What else, dear?
And your last thing is Smith Street.
Smith Street.
Yeah.
We would walk along the sidewalk, and we would see a cigarette package, and it had foil. And we would pick up that package and take the foil, and we would start rolling the foil into a ball. And then we had contests to see who could get the biggest ball of foil. By then I had a teddy bear named Bobby, and a teddy bear named Nancy, and a teddy bear Pee-wee. Billy, what happened to your big Billy teddy bear that you got when you were 6 years old in Prescott with a red wagon? We stopped to see somebody in Holton and visited them, and I left the teddy bear on the trunk of the car, and I didn't realize it until we were miles and miles and miles down the road. Now, wasn't that a terrible thing? That is one of the regrets that I've carried with me all my life. How could I do that? And Mother said, no, you can't go back and get it. That's too far. I hope the teddy bear found a good home. He must have fallen off the car in the middle of the road. But people didn't go that fast. They would not have run over him. Is that all, honey?
That's all on your list for today.
Well, you've been a big help. I thank you.
You're welcome.
What year are we talking about, folks? Well, Glennie is 10 years old, and so that would be 1938. And she's in 5th grade in Bangor at the Bauer Street School, a rundown building if you ever saw one, and a rundown classroom. And that teacher took me left the schoolroom unattended and took me into a secluded office and took a leather strap that was this big, this thick, stiff leather strap, and banged me on the hand. And I never knew to this day what she was punishing me for. Grace and peace, folks. We'll be back with another chapter.